Hello everybody and welcome to today's video. I am thrilled to say that I get to talk about the DioField Chronicle today. I was given early access to a demo which I believe has been released now, if not right at this moment, then it will be very soon, so you can download and play it yourself. But this demo gives you a really good sense of what to expect from this game. It gives you the first couple of missions, it gives you an introduction to the story, the characters, and the general way that it feels to play and the way it looks and all the rest of it. You get a really good sense of what to expect from this game from this demo, and it is really, really impressive. It is amazing to me that if you would think back to the start of the year, you could almost forget some of the games that were released in the first half of 2022 because this year has been so jammed-packed with so many interesting games. Not just the big ones, everybody knows Elden Ring and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, of course, but there's just been so many other titles that have been bubbling away under the surface that if you were to play them, you would love them, but it's easy to forget about them because there's just been so many of them. I cannot think of a year that has been more jammed-packed with an endless sequence of stuff to play than this year. DioField Chronicles very much feels like another one of those. I am a little bit concerned that it will get overlooked because it comes at the tail end when people are still playing Elden Ring and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, when people have already decided what their games of the year were going to be, and then, there's more stuff to come in the busy period in the months ahead. So it does seem to me like it might be one that gets overlooked, but I hope it isn't, because this is a really, really impressive game. It is different, it is creative, it is very interesting, and it will probably be one of my highlights of the year, not just because it is different and interesting, but because it's just so well made. It's a truly impressive little game. So the first thing that caught my attention with DioField Chronicle was the combat system, because from the very first level, it has a really interesting combat system that encourages you to use your characters in interesting ways and be very tactical about how you go about things. The best way to describe it is a mix of Baldur's Gate and Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest or any other kind of traditional JRPG. The Baldur's Gate side of things is that the combat system is real-time but pausable. So at any time you can select a character to pause the action, which gives you the time to sit back and think about how you want to direct them. But then the characters all have Final Fantasy style abilities and skill trees, which is different to the Dungeons and Dragons bases of Baldur's Gate. This is an excellent mix for me because I love Baldur's Gate. I replay it regularly. I have versions of it on every console there is today. I just keep buying this thing every time they re-release it. It is one of my all-time favorite games. And you don't see too many efforts to blend Baldur's Gate with the JRPG. I don't know why. For whatever reason, though, the DioField Chronicle does come across as fairly unique in terms of what it is and what it is trying to do. And it is very fundamentally interesting. Like I said, from the very first mission, you are encouraged to think about things in a very tactical way. You have 3 or 4 characters, so I don't know if later on in the game you'll end up with more, but at this stage you have a fairly small force. And if you were to just attack your enemy head on with this group, they would be defeated even in those very early levels. What you need to do instead is be tactical about it. You need to flank your opponents, because when you do flank your opponents, then you do an additional damage to them. And then you need to use your special abilities in collaboration with that to really maximize your damage dealing potential and knock enemies out quickly. Because if you then get flanked by more than one enemy, then you take the damage as well. So the goal is to try to limit the number of enemies you fight to 1 at a time and to reduce the health of your opponents as quickly as possible. My favorite tactic early on is to send my horse rider around behind the enemy, so I'm attacking from behind, and then use my assassin-like character who is attacking from the front to use his special ability, which allows him to do, I think it's 4 or 5 strikes in a row. And when you get the flanking bonus to that, that is a lot of damage up front. So I am sure that later down the track, there'll be even more strategies that are added. In the second mission, you get an archer that joins your party, and he adds another dimension to things with his ranged abilities. And the maps themselves also seem to be very interesting, with various points that you need to capture. And the layout of the enemies within those maps is also quite good. So it's all very, very impressive. It is, if you want to think about it like a real-time Fire Emblem, then you can do that. But because it has that pausable ability, then it is much more strategic than a more kind of upfront real-time strategy game. So the mix is great, and I very rarely get hooked into a game purely for its combat system right from the outset. Usually with, especially tactics RPGs, the combat system is quite dull at the start because they're introducing it to you with the tutorials and stuff. But this one has had me hooked right from the outset. And that's a good thing. I'm sure it's only going to get better from there. The second thing that I really loved about the DioField Chronicle is just how broader in scope it was than I thought it was going to be. I went in thinking that it was going to be basically like a triangle strategy, which is not a bad thing by any means, but it's fairly limited in that you're selecting your next mission from a map. You go from mission to mission. The whole thing takes place from a top-down perspective, and that is really what you get. What you actually get with DioField Chronicle is this little hub thing that you can explore around, which is reminiscent of Fire Emblem Three Houses, where you get a behind-the-back perspective of your character, and you move through a space and talk to other characters and accept missions and so on. At the early stages of this game, it's quite simple. It's pretty much just follow the breadcrumbs, go to speak to the next character that you need to unlock the next story segment. But I'm sure later on down the track, you'll be able to use that space to have casual conversations with your favorite characters, perhaps build relationships with them, take on side missions, and so on and so forth. There's a lot of potential there for it to be basically exactly like Fire Emblem Three Houses in terms of how it does the downtime between battles. And that is really a nice touch, because when you're just looking at your characters from that isometric top-down perspective, there's a distancing effect. You don't really get to be up close and kind of intimate as such with your favorite characters. When you do have that downtime where you've got the behind-the-back perspective and you can get a better sense of these characters that way, there is a potential there for the story to be broadened as a result. And it feels like it's a much more premium kind of experience as such. It has a depth to it that goes beyond the combat system, which is nice. In terms of the story it's telling, there is an interesting one there, I think. You play as a group of mercenaries, which is, again, very Fire Emblem classic. And right from the outset, you get the sense that the employer that you are beholden to is not entirely honorable, and you may end up getting to conflict with them in some way. If not that, then some of the stuff you'll get up to will be questionable, and you'll be asked to think about the implications of what you're doing. We've seen a lot of games that do military kind of story-based things in an interesting and morally conflicting way. Triangle strategy itself from earlier in the year was a good example of that. I would expect DioField Chronicle to be more of that, and it's probably not going to win any awards for the originality of the story, but it is told in an interesting way and presented impeccably. Between missions, there's these really nice kind of drawn cutscenes, hand-drawn cutscenes, and when you're getting briefed to go on a mission, you get this kind of battle map which looks very much like a diorama, and it's pieces moving around a chessboard kind of effect. So again, the presentation is really nice. It's all very, very good. I'm stumbling over my words a little bit here because there's just so much to enthuse about with the DioField Chronicle, but really, I just want to play more of this game. And I went in not expecting that. I just thought that this was going to be another one of those games that Square Enix throws out there to keep the run rates going. But instead, this really has potential to be something special, different and interesting, and push beyond just being a tactics RPG, push beyond just being a kind of military strategy story to be something different. So that's the demo. You can go and play it yourself. I've talked about it now and I've probably wasted your time. Go and download the thing and try it out for yourself, and let me know what you think in the comments. If you've enjoyed it, then if you're going to go and buy the whole thing, is this a kind of game that's for you? It would be great to hear from you. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say right now. If you want to make sure that you see all the videos as we upload them, hit the like and subscribe button. That way you won't miss any as we do put them up. And if you want to support what we're doing at digitallydownloaded.net, you can. It's not just the videos. We also have the website, which we publish multiple stories on per day. And we've got the podcast, and we do a lot. You can support all of that by backing us on Patreon for $1 a month, if not more. If you want to do more, then great, but $1 a month buys you in. And if you do that, if you support us on Patreon, You get a 56-page magazine each month as well, in which we go into depth with all kinds of things to do with Japanese art and culture, not just video games, but also music and film and literature and travel and tourism and everything else. It's a good magazine if you're into your Japanese games. And I imagine if you're here for DioField Chronicle, then you're probably at least interested in that. So hopefully the magazine is of interest to you as well. All right, that's it for me. Let's chat this once you've played through the demo, and we will see you at the next video.